Once upon a time, in a cheerful little town called Paintpot Village, where the pavements were colored with chalk and the clouds sometimes looked like fish and sometimes like ice cream cones, lived a little boy named Oliver. Oliver loved painting more than anything in the world. He always had a little smudge of paint on his fingers. Sometimes a blue dot on the tip of his nose, and sometimes a yellow stripe on his cheek. For Oliver, a blank sheet of paper was like a door waiting to be opened. Today was a very exciting day for Oliver. It was the day of his lesson at Miss Brushwood's famous art studio. Miss Brushwood was a very jolly artist who wore a giant red beret on her head and glasses covered in tiny speckles of paint. The Magic Studio. Oliver pushed open the studio door. Creak. Inside, it smelled lovely, like fresh paint, paper, and lavender. Oliver's best friends, Sophie and George, were already there. Everyone stood behind their easels, painting stands. Miss Brushwood clapped her hands together. Welcome, my little artists. Today, we are not going to have an ordinary lesson. Today, we will stretch our imaginations. Then, from a velvet box, she took out 3 paintbrushes with handles made of pure gold. These are the magic golden brushes. Whatever you paint with them won't stay on the paper. So, be careful, she said with a wink. Oliver took his brush excitedly. The tip of the brush was so soft, it felt like touching a cloud. Oliver thought, I wonder what I should paint. 1. The blue butterfly. He decided to start with something simple. He dipped his brush into the bright blue paint. Right in the middle of the paper, he painted 2 large wings. Then a thin body and 2 curly antennae. When the painting was finished, Oliver stepped back to look. What a beautiful butterfly, he said. Just then, the paint on the paper began to wobble. The paper rustled gently. And then, something incredible happened. The blue butterfly Oliver had painted began to flap its wings. Flutter. 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 First, it peeled itself off the paper, then it rose into the air and landed right on Oliver's nose. Oliver giggled. That tickles. Hello, little butterfly. The butterfly began to fly happily around the room. 2. The red racing car. Next to him, Sophie squealed, Look! My flower is singing. George was amazed. The apple one painted just rolled off the paper and fell on the floor. Oliver felt brave. I must paint something bigger, he said. This time, he dipped his brush into the fire engine red paint. He painted 2 round wheels on the paper. Then he added a cool, streamlined body on top. And a spoiler at the back so it could go as fast as the wind. Finally, he painted the number 1 on the door. As soon as Oliver painted the last stroke, a sound filled the room. Vroom! Vroom! The red racing car zoomed off the paper, zip, and landed on the studio floor. The little car started whizzing around the chair legs. Beep beep! It honked at Oliver. Oliver shouted, Catch it, George! The car jumped over George's shoe and raced to the other end of the room. 3. The dancing robot. Oliver couldn't stop now. This was too much fun. He took a fresh sheet of paper. He dipped his brush into silver and neon green paint. He painted a square head, a rectangular body. He made springs for arms and wheels for legs. And on its chest, he painted a huge, smiling screen. He wrote its name underneath, Paintpot. As soon as the drawing was done, a metallic voice spoke, beep. Bop. Hello, Oliver. Paintpot stepped out of the paper, or rather, rolled out. It opened its arms wide and began to dance. Click-clack, click-clack. While Paintpot danced, Sophie's singing flower kept the rhythm. The studio had suddenly turned into a carnival for Chaos and the Giant Dragon. The room was getting very crowded now. The blue butterfly was circling the ceiling light, the red car was zooming on the floor, and Paintpot was dancing with Miss Brushwood. Miss Brushwood laughed, wonderful. But children, do be careful, don't spill the paint. Oliver said, one last thing. We need a big friend to look after them all. Oliver pulled the biggest canvas in the room towards him. He mixed purple, green, and orange paints. He painted a huge, long tail. He added spikes on its back, a friendly smile on its mouth, and 2 tiny wings. This was a cute dragon. His name was Sparky. When Oliver finished painting, everyone in the room held their breath. The canvas shook. And poof! Sparky the dragon stuck his head out of the canvas. Sparky was so big that his neck touched the ceiling of the room. Sparky sneezed, ACHLO. But instead of fire, glittering confetti came out of his mouth. Everywhere was covered in sparkly glitter. However, there was a problem. When Sparky wagged his tail, he accidentally knocked over the paint pots. Clatter! Crash! Paintpot tripped over Sparky's foot and fell over. Beep bop! My circuits are dizzy. The red car panicked and hid under the rug. The solution, a magical world. Miss Brushwood said, Oliver, I think this room is getting a bit too small for your friends. You must paint a place for them to live. Oliver looked around. Sparky the dragon was trying to fit under the table, and the butterfly wanted to fly out of the window. She was right. They didn't belong here. Right away, said Oliver. He rolled out a gigantic, long roll of white paper, as big as a wall. Sophie and George came to help him. The 3 friends began to paint with their golden brushes. Oliver painted lush green hills and purple mountains. Sophie painted houses made of sweets and singing rivers. George painted winding, endless racetracks for the cars. In the sky, they added a huge, smiling sun and fluffy cotton wool clouds. When the painting was finished, Oliver added a door to the world they had drawn and left it slightly open. Off you go, friends, called Oliver. Your new home is ready. Goodbye and happy ending. First, the red racing car revved its engine, vroom. It drove quickly towards the giant painting on the wall, entered the road inside the picture, and zoomed away. Then, the blue butterfly flew towards the flower field in the painting. Paintpot waved at Oliver. Paintpot. Thank you, Oliver. And entered a house made of sweets in the picture. Last of all was Sparky the dragon. Sparky lowered his big head and gave Oliver a warm, wet kiss on the cheek. Then, wagging his tail, he flew to the top of the purple mountains in the painting. Now, they were all inside that huge, moving picture on the wall. When the children looked at the painting, they could see the car driving, the dragon flying, and the robot dancing. But they weren't making a mess in the studio anymore. Miss Brushwood said, "That is true art. To create worlds and set them free." When the lesson was over, Oliver, Sophie, and George looked at the paint smudges on their hands and smiled. Outside, the rain had stopped. As Oliver walked home, he touched the pencil in his pocket. It might not be a golden brush, but Oliver knew something now. It wasn't the brush that was magic, it was the dreams in his mind. And who knows? Maybe the rocket he would draw at home tonight could take him to the moon in his dreams. The end.